Hey everyone, this is your host Nick Hoffman, and I am still on parental leave. But don't you worry, there's plenty of material for you guys to listen in on. In the meantime, as we approach the winter months, we have decided to do our December filled with kids' movies again, as we often do. This time we're doing the 20th Century Fox production of Anastasia, which is quite possibly the most historically inaccurate thing we've ever looked at. But you know, can you hear that? The swing-a-majig in the background's a little squeaky. So, as I'm off doing my dad thing, thanks for subscribing, thanks for making this a great year for the podcast, and most importantly, thank you for listening. That's all it is. Review, share, join the Patreon. I'm dadding at home, and I appreciate every one of you guys. Thanks.
Welcome to Myopia Movies. This week we're covering Kelsey Grammer's animated debut outside of Sideshow Bob.
I was about to say.
Yeah, I was going to say. I'm host Nick Hoffman, Riffer on Cineprov, and on panel we have...
Kelly.
John.
Hello, this is Daniel, frequent contributor to Popdose, and I just want to go ahead and say, we're doing Anastasia for this episode.
That's right. This is... We record in bunches now because I have a family I'm supposed to care about. And so this is a 3-movie day where we did 2 Don Bluth movies, 2 Christopher Lloyd movies, right? There was something else that tied these movies together, I think. We'll remember it later.
The Cusacks.
The Cusacks. And both John Cusack and June Cusack.
That's right.
We won't tell you which movies those were, though I might hint it later. See if you can figure out the order we recorded these.
If you guess it, you get a date with Nick.
If you guess it, we'll let you pick a
Don't
movie.
guess it.
If you guess it, we'll let you pick a
If
film.
you guess it, I will provide you with John's email so you can send a dick pic.
That's right.
No, not again. I have so many.
Yeah. So if you guys don't remember this movie, this was Fox Animation Studio in the late 90s was trying to compete with Disney alongside Katzenberg at DreamWorks. So we had a lot of late 90s, early 2000s animated flicks.
Was this not the first animated film from Fox Animated Studios?
I believe it was.
Yeah, and it was a financial success. Although, as a historian, holy shit, this makes Pocahontas look like a documentary.
Which is so funny because Jonathan loves this movie.
Yes.
And I do too. So this is going to be the Copsy show. He's okay with Anastasia. I think I just breathed in my hair. But
I'm keeping that in, by the way.
He gets so violently angry about Mulan and Pocahontas. But he's fine with this. I don't
Well, this was
understand.
actually good as opposed to those other 2.
Whoa, sir.
I will also say...
Also, this has John Cusack in it, so that's a pass.
Also, if you guys are a divorce lawyer, please contact Nick. We'll get you into the Patreon. Just kidding.
Well, I will say also, Chris Lloyd goes a long way in this movie. He's awesome. I mean, the cast is great.
Even though he's not in it. We'll get into it.
He's not in it. Meg Ryan is fine. Kelsey Grammer is good in this movie.
None of the
He's
actors
the only
except
one that sings.
for 3 do their own singing. It's Kelsey Grammer, it's Bernadette Peters, and it's Angela Lansbury in the opening scene.
Angela Lansbury sings pretty well, too.
Which does beg the question, I guess it's because of name recognition. Why would you pick someone for a musical who can't sing?
They didn't ask until after. So I looked at that, and they had already cast John Cusack when he was like, so actually I can't sing. And they were just like, all right, whatever.
So do you think it wasn't a musical at first?
Either that or they didn't care. Like Jonathan said, maybe they wanted the notoriety over.
I
But
can't
there are a
imagine
lot
they'd
of
make a movie
movies.
about the Russian Revolution and not make it a musical.
Well, apparently this is a play from the 50s. There's an Anastasia play.
It was a movie from the 50s.
56, and it was owned by Fox, so they just used it.
Yeah.
But apparently Rasputin isn't in it, which, spoiler, you could tell he didn't belong in this movie. This is really weird.
There is so much,
I
just
also-
wrong with this movie.
Well, and I have a theory for John's loving of this movie, even though it's not historical, because this is so far from history. It's almost like it
Well,
doesn't
he's in
matter.
love with John Cusack, too.
There's that.
Well, sure,
So,
and Meg Ryan.
who
I
is
mean,
he?
it was '98.
Well,
if you
yeah.
weren't in
No.
love with Meg Ryan, you'd be deported.
Meg Ryan's good, but John Cusack? Mwah.
I have been told I would be asked to leave.
From John Cusack?
Yes.
If he showed up?
John Cusack and Alan Rickman, I was told flat out when we started dating, if they show up, you leave.
Did you ever see that King of the Hill episode that Alan Rickman was
I don't
in?
watch that.
He was in an episode. You should check it
He's
out.
lovely. I love him.
He was
He is
fantastic.
lovely. He was lovely.
It was actually
He still is.
a very
I mean, his
sad
memory
day when
lives
he
on.
died.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think Jonathan contemplated taking off work that day.
I remember I woke up and I checked my phone and I saw the news and then I actually woke Kellie up. Which, if any of you know Kellie, that's a
You
sticking
don't do
your finger
that.
in a bear trap kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I said, Alan Rickman died, and the day went downhill from there.
Well, mostly because he woke me up.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Anyway, this movie does not star Alan Rickman.
It does not.
So, look, I mean, the history is much darker. But who wants to give us a plot synopsis? John, is it his favorite?
Is it your favorite?
I mean, I won't say it's my favorite, but it's damn good.
Who wants to do the plot? Do you want to do it?
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Do it, John.
I'll do it.
Do it,
Okay,
John.
okay.
I'll be the good wife and
Okay.
interject.
She's not Anastasia. Oh wait, no, she is. The end.
Okay.
So we start out in.
I mean, just because you told the real historical version of this con artist.
Oh, who was the con artist this is
There's
based
a
on?
woman, the most famous one was a woman named Karen Anderson who lived in the States, and they proved that she was a liar after she died.
She was a Polish immigrant or something, right?
Right, and she had surgery, and because the Romanovs, turns out they're super incestuous, and they're related to the English royal family.
Oh, yeah.
So they just tested her blood against the DNA sample they had from a surgery she did, and it was all nonsense.
Didn't we found the Romanov bodies, by the way?
We did.
Well,
We ended up finding-
I think
but
much later though, didn't we?
the 1970s, I think, but
Yeah.
it was covered up because it was still, the Soviet time. So when the Soviet Union dissolved, it's like, oh, hey, we found 9 bodies, and they tested them, and it was the Romanov family. And then I think in 2007 they found 2 additional bodies.
Which were the
Wasn't,
two
and wasn't
youngest.
that the thing? Like, one of them, they couldn't pin Anastasia as being one of them, which
In
is,
the-
I
Correct.
think, why it
Correct.
resurged, right?
In the initial find,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
but after 2007, it's like, nah, she died.
That's right.
She
Yeah,
was,
I
she
mean,
was
for sure.
killed.
There was no question. Also, I guess we can get into the real plot. Would you like to give us a synopsis, or do you want me
No,
to?
go ahead. John knows about to.
Oh, okay, so we start off in Imperial Russia, in the palace of Tsar Nicholas II and his family, and we see little Anastasia meeting her grandmother, and they're having a big ball, and then the basically Sleeping Beauty happens,
Yep.
where Rasputin comes in, makes a ruckus, and says, "Why wasn't I invited? It's because of me that you have all this." And the Tsar says, "Get the hell out." And so Rasputin curses the family, and thus,
Not what happens
It's-
in real life.
surprise, surprise,
Shut up.
we're going to get more of that as we go. But
You mean demons don't cause the Russian Revolution, John?
Obviously,
We don't know
they
they
do.
I mean, fair. If Vlad Lenin appears with wings for no reason, better movie.
So in one of the easiest montages ever, the Russian Revolution happens, and everything goes to hell. And Anastasia and the grandmother are secreted out of the palace during the
By
kerfuffle.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
During the kerfuffle,
Was that the voice?
No.
oh,
Rasputin is killed.
Yeah.
He dies trying to
Kill the grandma
Kill
and
them, yeah.
Anastasia.
He
So
falls through
he
a
falls through ice.
through the ice,
And Bartok
yeah.
just stands there and goes, "Oh."
Oops.
which
Yeah.
actually
Ice is gonna break.
Which actually is, I believe, how Rasputin died. He was assassinated, and then they dumped his body into.
Oh my god. So we were watching this movie last night over hot wings, as you do. And Naomi was watching it with us, my daughter, and I was like, "So do you want to know how Rasputin really died?" And she goes, "Nah." And so I'm like, well, first he was poisoned, and then he woke up, and then he was shot 6 times, and then he started coming at the people, and then they bashed him on the head, they tied him to a rock, and they threw him in the water, and he drowned, but they found his body having untied the rock, and she goes, "Daddy, don't make up stuff." And I'm like,
No, that's what happened.
and then I'm like, you see, like, real history is crazier
Yeah.
than
So
this
again,
nonsense.
Maybe actual proof that demons did cause it.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying. All I'm saying.
So the revolution happens. The Tsar and his family are killed. The grandmother flees to Paris.
Yep.
And Anastasia gets her head knocked as she tries to flee on the train, and she loses all her memory.
That's right.
So she grows up in an orphanage, and the only thing that ties her to her family is a little pendant that says, "I'll meet you in Paris."
Together
In
in Paris.
See, I knew you knew this. And so she goes to Russia, or to Moscow, to hop a train to Paris. Can't do it, because
No exit visa.
no exit visa, no papers. So she goes to the guy who gets papers, which is John Cusack, and
As
Dimitri.
as Dimitri, and Kelsey Grammer as Vlad,
Yes.
and they have a scheme where they are trying to find girls to pass as the Princess Anastasia.
She finds a puppy
to
on the
take
way.
to take this girl to the grandmother and get a big ass reward.
That's right.
So the rest of this movie is them taking her to Paris while training her in the ways of the princess.
You were born in a palace by the sea.
A palace by the sea.
And they meet the grandmother, and they eventually pass her off as Anastasia because she says things she shouldn't know. And surprise, surprise, she is the Princess Anastasia. And right when things are about to get nice, the Rasputin comes and ruins things, but he's been kind of dogging them the whole way.
Yes.
By the way, there is no mention in this movie whatsoever of Lenin, Trotsky, or Stalin.
Or even the
By
war.
design.
They don't explain anything.
By
It's just
design. So apparently they specifically wanted to avoid any politics, any idealism, any of that stuff.
That's not
So
politics. That's just what happened.
Well, at one point, Vlad does say, "I hate this country. Everything is red."
Yeah, they
When
do.
he's talking about the papers, so he does say something along
in
those
the
lines.
opening,
And they
like-
do say that they're run down and
Yeah,
gloomy
the
and
song
gray.
about all the Muscovites singing about their day, like things are gray and things are boring, and
Well, those weren't Muscovites.
Factories.
This was St. Petersburg,
Oh,
even
yeah,
though
you're right.
at
St.
this
Petersburg,
point it was
yeah.
called Leningrad.
Yes.
yes.
Um,
So they skip over a lot of history, but
Like all of it.
I mean, they focus on the main story, which is, I guess, a good idea. That it's
On the con.
Well, the con, exactly.
I mean, it's literally Sleeping Beauty, where she's taken away from being a princess, and then she has to read.
Or it's My Fair Lady.
Princess.
Like
Yes.
you have to train her to be a princess.
Although, to be fair, My Fair Lady, she was never a princess to begin with.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But really, it would be more like Princess Diaries.
Yes.
So we should talk about the cast just briefly. We got Meg Ryan as Anastasia as an adult. As a girl, she's played by Kirsten Dunst.
Yep.
The singing voice when she's a girl is Lacey Chabert, who's
Eliza
Gretchen
Thornberry.
from Mean Girl.
Really?
Shut up!
Yes, she's Gretchen from Mean Girls. She's Eliza Thornberry, among other things. She's also in Not Another Teen Movie, and in previous episode, Lost in Space, where she plays Penny.
Yes,
Really?
that's right. Yes.
Then, of course, we've got the great Chris Lloyd as Rasputin. We have Kelsey Grammer as Vlad, who's the only one who sings as himself. His singing voice is Jim Cummings, who's the voice of Goofy.
Yep.
Jim Cummings has done a lot. He did Darkwing Duck. He's done Winnie the Pooh. He's a legend.
He's one of those guys you click on and he has a gold toilet. Like, he has 7,000 credits.
Yeah.
Actually saw him at Dragon Con, so hooray.
Good job.
Does he still have his mustache?
Yes, he does.
Of course he does. Hank Azaria is Bartok. Someone else was supposed to be Bartok. You're telling me.
Woody Allen.
Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Angela Lansbury plays the Dowager Empress Maria, who died in 1928. So we have a timeline. This movie is taking place in the 20s. We got Bernadette Peters, who plays her like buxom handmaid, right?
Sophie.
Lady in waiting, Sophie. That's kind of it. But that's a pretty damn good cast.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's kind of it. Andrea Martin is in this movie and doesn't get a photo in the end credits, and that pissed me off.
She plays a woman called Flemkoff.
She's the owner of the orphanage,
Yeah.
and for those who don't know, Andrea Martin, she got her start on SCTV back in the day,
Yep.
so if you've ever seen that, you've seen her, and she's just done a ton of shit since then.
She's in My Big Fat Greek Wedding as Aunt Vulva.
She voiced Apu's mother in The Simpsons.
I know, I was making a joke. Aunt Vowla. And she's in the sequel, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, which came out 4 years ago.
It is an
Lady
opportunity to
or
call
something?
the
I don't
sequel
know.
My Big Fat Greek Divorce.
She's in Knights of the
My Big Fat Greek Trial Separation.
And she plays 37 characters on Sesame Street. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Edith Prickly is in this movie. That's all I'm going to say.
You're just naming people.
Yeah, you just
Yeah, I
know
think you're
people.
just naming people.
What are you talking about? You don't
You
know.
don't know about Edith?
Deborah Mooney is in this.
How could
Charity
Deborah Mooney be in
Jones.
this?
who
You-
I mean,
sounds-
I know her.
You
She's
don't
a
know
stripper,
about Edith
right?
Prickly?
Charity
Yeah,
Jones.
absolutely.
Edith
She went to my high
Prickly.
school.
Go watch SCTV. That's Andrea Martin's biggest character in that show.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
She was one of the station managers.
Charity James.
Okay.
She was in Space Jam.
Who wasn't in Space Jam?
And
So
Gargoyles.
I fell down a rabbit hole while we were watching this movie because every single outfit change, I was like, I can cosplay that. I can cosplay that. I can cosplay that.
And you wanted
I
to
can
do it for
cosplay that.
today.
I was like, I can go to Goodwill and get a tunic and I can be her right now. I can dye my hair right now. Jonathan talked me out of it right now. He's like, dinner's going to be ready in 10 minutes and you need food. Sit down, shut up.
I thought you were just Googling Rasputin and found his horse penis in a museum.
I have heard about that, but I've not Googled it.
It's fake, by the way.
Oh, no, it's not real.
What?
So, there's a penis in the Moscow Museum that's supposed to be Rasputin's, and it's like a donkey penis.
I heard it was a sea cucumber, but...
The background to Rasputin and, like, how he infiltrated that family and warped
because
their minds is amazing.
Yeah, because he promised that he could cure their son Alexei's
hemophilia.
Yeah.
And he probably did.
By killing them.
Well, no, I mean...
So Alexei probably died easier than the rest of them.
Alexei had hemophilia, which is a bleeding disease, and at the time the most common medicine was aspirin, and you're giving a hemophiliac aspirin, and so what Rasputin did was nothing, and so the bleeding would stop. And apparently he had a silver nitrate solution, which is what you find in a Stipic pen when you cut yourself shaving and it stops bleeding. I mean, so, like, what he did was stop the bleeding. And now, I don't think he's magic. But he did have sex with everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently,
not necessarily consensually, but yeah.
So, apparently he would greet people by honking their boobs.
Movie.
Like, just like...
As you do. It's a Russian thing.
It's, you know, I mean, a little bit of vodka, a little bit of boob honking.
I mean, that's how Jonathan greets me when he comes home. Is that, like, not normal in families?
Depends. Does he make a sound effect? Does he go...
Of course he does.
Of course.
Then it's
Have
fine.
you met him?
That's fine. If he goes... that's not.
And only if he's really tired.
So the opening scene of this movie, which is historically inaccurate because by this point Nicholas II was off on the German front.
Yeah, he was worried.
Yeah,
Wow.
which helped cause the revolution. They're holding a grand ball, and his mother shows up, but then
Shows up late. Who does that?
If you're the dowager,
so
you can do whatever you like.
Rude. Sorry.
Ladies, do you need help holding up them grand balls? What?
If anyone could hold up a grand ball, it's Angela Lansbury.
This is true. Am I the only one who looks at her and thinks, "Are you trying to get someone killed with a deck of cards?"
Okay, so this is Don Bluth. The movie is beautifully animated for the most part, but every so often it gets super cheap. And you see it in her face sometimes, where she just gives these 1,000-yard stares like she's Cinderella's stepmom. It's really intense.
It does, and I think it's because, so for this movie, if I remember right, and Jonathan and I were kind of talking about this, and then I made him stop so that we could talk about it here. They tried a lot of new things with this movie, with the animation, and I see it a lot that the actual animation suffers in the scenes where they're doing CG. So in the scene that you're talking about with the grand ball, if you look at Anastasia's gown, her gold dots, they glitter, and they're CG glitter. They move, and they don't move the way they're supposed to. And you can kind of see that. And so I think they're like, well, that's going to draw focus away. Maybe, they focus too much on that to perfect the actual animation. Because then in the next scene where you're talking about, where she kind of puts her head back and she's singing and it looks really bad, she's holding that music box. And the music box is CG, and it's meant to be the focal piece. So I don't know if maybe they weren't paying attention or were hoping that we wouldn't pay attention.
Well, what's happening at this party, just in terms of the plot, is Grandmama gives Anastasia a music box that looks like a Fabergé egg, which is historically accurate considering the palace was raided during the Revolution.
Well, and it was based on an actual jewelry box from the time.
Yes. That makes sense, but they sing a song together, and then afterwards is when everything goes to hell because Rasputin shows up. And this is where Kirsten Dunst is voicing Anastasia. This was after Jumanji, right?
Yeah, I mean, she was a person kind of thing. I will say, well, no, I mean...
A person kind of thing.
Stops being a person between movies, though.
She is an actress.
Speaking of demons...
Some of these characters, though, could have been played by voice actors.
War.
Yeah.
Well, right, but, you didn't need Kirsten Dunst here for stunt acting.
For the 6 lines that she has.
Yeah, it's not necessary, and she does a fine job. It's just...
It's cute.
I guess at that point, she would have been a voice actress.
Yeah, what was Interview with a Vampire? It was probably
before.
Yeah, so, she was a thing.
She was a thing, though,
She doesn't anchor that movie.
But that's the thing with this, though. They wanted the name, right?
Yeah,
I guess if it was
I
the
think
first
we're
film
kind
that
of-
Fox put out as an animation, they wanted as many top bill names as they
paid
could.
for Meg Ryan in 1997, which cost an arm and a leg.
And then had to hire someone else to sing her part. So, like,
Yes.
I hear she was on the fence about this movie until they
Really?
took a scene from Sleepless in Seattle and animated it. Like
Yeah.
put the audio to an animation set to Anastasia and then sent it to her and said, "This is what we want."
Yep.
And she's like, "Damn, that's good. We'll do this."
And I will say, at points, she kind of looks like a brown-haired Meg Ryan, and at points, she
Yeah.
looks like nothing.
Yes.
Like,
well, that's the animation.
There are several scenes where it's this weird CGI background and then like one traditionally animated character, especially that scene on the ship.
yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah,
God
Jonathan
help me.
was not thrilled with that either. And honestly, it didn't stand out to me as a kid. And like I have such fond memories with this movie. Like it came out I was a kid, you know, when it came out, and like I had my mama, my mom's mom, had given me her wedding dress that she made for herself. And it was, you know, it was knee length on her. It was this beautiful white and green silk, and I would put this dress on and just run around my backyard singing these songs and like being Anastasia, right? And the gown's huge on me, and I tore it to pieces playing outside in it, and I hate myself every day for that. I wish I'd like kept it, but I had so much fun. So well, you can't really take those memories away either. So it's like it had so much fun. I was telling Jonathan that I actually got my boombox out and made my brother leave the house so that I could record the songs on a cassette tape, like because I
Do
didn't.
you have those cassette tapes?
I might somewhere in a box.
If you do, I'll put them at the end of this episode of you singing.
Oh, it's not me singing. It's just I recorded it from the
Oh,
TV.
God.
It's like I didn't.
Yeah.
I
But
misunderstood
I told Jonathan,
that.
I was like, I'm going to sing all day, and I'm going to practice, and I'm going to sing Once Upon a December, and I'm going to make Nick put it on Patreon, and he's like, okay, and I'm like, and then I woke up hungover, and now I'm sneezing, and I did not sing at all today, so you guys don't get that. Maybe we can do that later, but like, I love that song.
Well, and to your point, we did All Dogs before this. Once Upon a December is a great song compared to anything on All Dogs.
You know who the singers on for the end theme are, right?
Please tell us.
Yeah, no, we were wondering about that. We didn't look him up.
One of them is Richard Marx.
Who is?
He was this early, like, Michael Bolton-esque pop singer in the
Yeah.
early 90s. And the other one is Donna Lewis. Remember her?
No, should I?
I love you, always forever, near and far,
Oh, really?
closer together.
That's her.
Ah,
Well,
nice.
well, and this is Eisner-esque. Like, we have to have a pop song that we can spin off, kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then when you hear the pop ballad version at the end, you're like, oh yeah, this is on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
I remember this.
Yeah.
And also, I guess Eisner era. Like, I think maybe the Lion, or no, it was probably Aladdin was the first one with the stunt casting with the genie, right? And then, like, Lion King is almost no voice actors. It's all actors playing voice actors.
Well, I mean, voice actors are actors, but I get what you mean.
Well, right.
A-listers as animated characters.
But
Yeah,
I prefer
like-
voice actors. I mean, Nathan Lane does a fine job, but, like, Jonathan Taylor Thomas had no business being an animated lion.
Yeah.
He does a fine job, but you're paying 6 times as much than, say, you know, someone who would have been on Pinky and the Brain to do the same kind of role.
Yeah, it's a different talent.
Which is why I'm
It's-
surprised that everybody who was in this movie
Does a great
did
job.
so well.
They did a
They
really
did a
good
great
job.
Hank Azaria obviously was the only proper
Simpsons character.
voice actor that you had on this, but everybody else, it was their first or among their first animated things, and they did really well.
But Hank Azaria did such a bad job. He's doing a
I
terrible...
think that's just the character he was given.
Well, he's doing like a bad impersonation of William H. Macy from Fargo and combining that with Mo Sizlak, and then
He's
that's
a-
supposed to be Bartok.
20% Jewier.
I love Bartok.
Bartok's fine.
I love
well,
Bartok.
let-
Bartok's amazing.
talk
He's
about
so fucking
Rasputin
pointless.
and Bartok.
Yeah,
Because they're my
what a
biggest
weird relationship.
my biggest issue with the film, but as characters, they obviously factor very deeply into the plot and everything like that. So
But
Rasputin
they're not
obviously is
used
Chris
to
Lloyd,
drive it, which
and
was
Bartok
nice.
is the comedy relief for this film.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but we had the little Bartok with the vial. What do they call it?
It's his soul in a squeeze
Right,
bottle.
but he has a name.
Sells his soul.
It's a relic.
Yeah.
A reliquary, right?
Yes.
And you pull. They were attached by the string, and you pull it, and it pulls Bartok down from like when he's going to. We got it from Burger King. It's great.
It's like the secret of the ooze on a necklace. Like,
It is.
it's
nice.
Yeah.
So if that gets destroyed, Rasputin loses his soul and has to go back down to hell.
He's already lost his soul. That's the only thing that's keeping him in any sort of existence.
Right.
Because when we meet him,
Right, he's in the in-between, right?
Yeah,
because
he's in limbo.
He sold his soul, but yeah, he's in limbo. But he's
in the
but
upside
he
down.
can't leave anywhere because there is still a Romanov that survived.
Yeah.
right. And if he doesn't kill the Romanovs that survived,
By
although
the stroke of midnight.
apparently it doesn't.
It seems very like I have to do this now.
It doesn't
Like,
apply to the grandma, which is weird.
She married into the family.
yeah,
yeah,
She's-
she's
Technically, still a Romanov. She's literally
Yeah.
the mother of
I mean, 'cause you
Nicholas.
wanna
she's not in control.
Yeah, I don't think even if Anastasia assuming that the Imperial line stayed, had Anastasia died, no one would have given the crown to the Dowager.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
I mean, to be
She's not
fair,
an
her
heir.
great-grandmother was Queen Victoria, so it's not like they're going to take down the English, although better movie.
So,
The sequel's
Yeah.
just taking down the English crown.
As you do.
question for everyone here: the opening song is "Rumor in St. Petersburg." The music here is
Have you heard there's a rumor in St. Petersburg?
the music's genuinely fine, but that just opens up so many questions to me. First and foremost, even if a Romanov survived, who cares? I mean, do you think Stalin was just going to step aside for
Also, the idea that
Anastasia?
anyone is publishing a newspaper in Stalin's Russia.
that was
That was they're like, but you, there's a character, he's singing and he's handing out newspapers. He goes, but you didn't hear it from me. And I'm like, it's on the front page. It's literally on the front page of the
I
newspaper.
like the idea that there's just like a KGB officer killing these people in the middle of a song. Like,
That's
Did
kind
the
of what Jonathan
soldiers
said
even
because I
come
pointed
in?
that out, and Jonathan's like, well, he's not supposed to be handing out newspapers anyway. And
Well,
it's like,
even in the scene, like the soldiers show up, and then the newspaper guy just shuts his door. It's like, you didn't hear it from me,
yeah.
and everybody scatters.
even so, that was my second question. Why is Stalin even allowing a rumor to go through Leningrad? All these people would be in the fucking
Have you
gulag.
tried to stop a rumor before? It gets worse.
well, but the Soviets literally
Have you ever
erased
been a
people
girl
from
in high school?
pictures.
Yes.
Have I ever been
Before
a girl in
Photoshop.
high school?
If you try to stop a rumor, it spreads so much faster.
I mean, but
Did you see his face though? He was like,
I know.
I'm sorry, did I hear that question right? Like, obviously not.
have you ever been a girl in middle school?
Hello, my name is Clarice, and I'm the prom queen.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
Daniel. Your
so-
face was priceless. It was so good.
So after a fire murder scene, like out of the end of Bambi, we have this scene, like you said, they're trying to figure out what's going on. This is where we're introduced to Kelsey Grammer as Vladimir and John Cusack as Dmitri. They're buying in his newspaper, and everyone's convinced there's a rumor that the Romanovs survived. Which is,
Well, Anastasia survived specifically.
which again, fine and dandy, but like,
It becomes very clear too that they started that rumor.
it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like the whole question to me is, since we have no context for what's going on, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, if the whole idea is that they're being repressed and therefore they want the king and queen to come back, we don't see it, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no tension. The tension
But I
is
mean,
that
even
they're
at the
con
time,
artists,
but even at the time when it was going in real life, when it was going around, who cares?
right?
But it became such a big thing.
Well, it's a big deal if you're the communists and you're trying to squash out any monarchist kind of ideology.
Yeah.
If there's someone you
Counter-revolutionary.
can tack onto, like, hey, there's a monarch over here
Yeah.
who would be easy to just shoo in and replace Stalin.
Well, right, and what would be interesting is if instead of the Romanovs, there were these. I mean, and I know it's really at this point it's 28, so Lenin's dead, Stalin's taking over right around then, depending on when they're filming this. But like, it'd be great if there were these communist iconography and people are almost graffitiing it with the Romanovs, and like,
Yeah.
then the idea matters. But to us as the watchers, the only thing that matters is that there are these con artists that we're supposed to care about. Because it's not until the third act that they realize, wait, it actually might be Anastasia.
Right.
Yeah.
The two, Vlad and Dmitri, don't care whether they find the actual Anastasia. They just want the money.
Well, exactly.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
ultimately, it doesn't matter that they found Anastasia. It matters to her and it matters to Dmitri, but it doesn't matter in a wider
and then
sense.
Vlad leaves the movie.
Yeah, basically.
Him and his dog. He goes out like the Incredible Hulk.
It's her dog. She found the dog. The dog led her to St. Petersburg. It was her sign, and his name is Puka.
Puka proves that she will be a Disney princess one day.
Doesn't
Obviously.
Puka mean something like
Shithouse. We changed it.
Well, no, like Harvey the Rabbit's supposed to be Puka, right? It's
Yes.
like some sort of shape-shifting spirit.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a spirit, like a kobold or a hobgoblin.
Or
Yeah, and it was meant to be.
lore.
It was meant to be her sign, right?
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, immediately after the rumor in St. Petersburg, we get Anastasia leaving the orphanage because Andrea Martin found a job for her at a fish market somewhere.
Well, she was 18. She was 18,
Yeah.
and so she was being kicked out.
Ah.
Like, because it's 10 years later. This all
Right.
happened when she was 8, so she's
Yeah.
of age now. So she has to leave.
Speaking of which, some of the lyrics in Rumor in St. Petersburg, since the revolution, our lives have been so bleak. This was a year before Stalin's modernization push, so your lives, they're about to get a lot bleaker.
Well,
Well, the funny thing
Yeah.
is, we looked it up, and Russia loved this movie.
they did.
Yeah,
They
like,
did very
like
well.
1990s
This movie.
Russia loved it because they saw it not as a historical piece, but as an art piece
Yeah.
About Russia.
about
About
Russia.
Russia.
And
Yeah.
they're like, hey, Western media is actually entertaining
Acknowledging us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and not as the bad guys. That's great.
I mean, this is, what it was, 98? So this is...
97, I think.
97. So this is after Yeltsin has drunk himself to death. I forget how he ends.
Yeltsin was
Before Vlad Putin gets elected the
I
first
think
time.
he's voted out. isn't he?
Yeltsin was president until I think 2001, and that's
Yeah.
when
Vlad.
Vladdy came into power. And
Little
Yeah.
Poots.
yep, little poots.
Pooty Putin
So this podcast is never going to be heard
in Russia.
in Russia.
Hey, we're the third biggest movie podcast in Ghana this week. So you
That's
guys...
Good
exciting.
for us.
Are there any movies out of Ghana that we can listen to?
Hey, they speak English, so you know what?
All right, we're good.
there.
We're good.
Well, anyway, after Anya, as she's referred to at this point, there's never any drama, by the way, about whether or not she's Anastasia. It's pretty much established.
That is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
but she's referred to as Anya, I guess, to fake it, and she leaves the orphanage, and that's when we get her meeting Puka and being convinced to go to Leningrad. I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't called St. Petersburg at the time; it was Leningrad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but in the movie it's St. Petersburg. Don't confuse people.
Well, again, it's published in 98 to make them forget about communism. I mean, Fox
kind
But
of-
I mean, I feel like if you're going to pick one thing to be a stickler for history about, like, that's a weird
oh,
one.
I've got many things. That just
Also,
kind
you've
of-
got two historians at the table, and
Literal-
we're less interested in
I'm
the
a
history.
doctor of history.
I minored in history
I'm
in
almost a
college.
doctor of
Does that
history.
mean anything?
I failed most of my history classes,
Okay.
but Anastasia I can do.
It kind of reminds me of when they did this TV movie version of Animal Farm,
Oh God!
and they added on this end because it came out in the 90s where
Bill
Animal...
Clinton shows up and eats the bacon.
He doesn't eat the bacon, but it's basically like Animal Farm fails, and then it's like the Soviet Union collapsing, and everything's like, it's going to be so much better now, and it's like, oh,
That's
honey.
not the point of Animal Farm.
No,
Anyway.
it's not.
Anyway, so she goes to see Dimitri, and
Yes, to get her papers.
To get her exit visa, because
That's right,
she's
get her
not at
exit
the
visa.
Because
train
there was
station.
no context from this bitch at the train station. It's like, see Dimitri, but I didn't tell you. And then she tells him that. She goes, but I can't tell you who said that. Like, you got her name?
because that's Russia. They spread the rumors.
I will also add here, this movie's beautiful. They don't
It's
know how to
absolutely
animate a
gorgeous.
fucking mouth. Everyone's all
Yeah.
mouthy and
Yes.
like Kelsey Grammer at one point swings around his jaw like he's Slender Man. He's like, yeah,
And
it's
at
the
one point,
most.
the thing
Rasputin's mouth falls off his face.
It does, right down his beard. But I wonder if that's a Don Bluth thing, though.
Yes.
Because Thumbelina's the same way. Like, I think he has a mouth fetish.
Well, I think it's that he watches mouths. I mean, fetish might be the right word, but he watches them close and then he does them twice as big because even like the mice in American Tail, when they're like somewhere out there, and it just he swallows
really
the
big,
moon.
yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
like in his like jawbone.
It's hard to do mouths and eyes in animation because that's what people are going to connect to.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So
get
And I
it.
get it being over the top, too, because, like, with mouths in animation, like, they either match or they don't. So if
Yeah.
you're going to make a point,
Yeah.
But I
the
imagine
mouths
it's easier
match.
to give a suspension of disbelief on a mouse versus a person.
Yeah, that's
it's weird.
I mean, we talked about it on All Dogs Go to Heaven too. That the dogs' mouths are ridiculously large, even for a dog. So
but it's funny too because they animate them like they're choir people. So you're out, and you're just like, that's not how people talk. I'm sorry, it's just not Vlad.
But I had that thought, and I was sitting there because I was. When did this come out?
97,
I think.
So I was 9. So I just wonder how many people. I know, Jonathan, you're so old. So I just wonder how many people or young girls sat in front of the mirror and was like, my mouth doesn't move like that. Why don't my lips look like that?
Choir. Why? You have to enunciate.
I did choir.
Elocution lessons.
Yeah.
Elocution.
Our teacher was very strict on pronouncing the T's when you sing. That was like her thing. And I was like,
okay.
There's a whole lot of other letters that get dropped too, though. Like, why just T's? It's fine.
I don't know. T's are important.
Because probably someone at one point told her,
T's
you keep dropping your T's and you knock that off.
Probably.
It's
it was a
4
Catholic
o'clock,
school,
you can't
so of
drop
course,
the T.
we're singing Christmas carols, and everything happens at night, right? So we have to...
Silent night, holy night.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I would throw a fucking wine bottle at you.
This was,
fair enough.
The song I remember specifically was... oh shit, I had it just a second ago. Anyway, it's fine.
Well, anyway, Anya goes to the old
She
palace.
breaks into the Winter Palace.
Yeah.
Which is surprisingly not looted like it was in real life.
Yeah.
But they say it was looted. That's
exactly.
the weird thing.
They say that there's stuff gone. And when Dimitri lets them, like, he gets them out through the secret door in the wall, right? And he has the music box.
Yeah.
And he's following them out, and they knock him out, and the music box drops. It's covered in jewels.
No one
He's
takes
knocked
it.
out, but the soldiers don't pick it up.
Well, but
Like,
I mean,
there's
even
no way.
the scene before she breaks in, when they're flouncing through the market, he's buying presumably dress and costume for her to pretend to be Anastasia, right? But the guy keeps saying, this came from the palace. The woman says, this came from the palace. So we know it's been looted by people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when she breaks in, shit's just there.
Yeah,
I do think a lot of it
Dusty. It is dusty.
they were bullshitting because
sure.
like the tailor says this cape came from the palace, and Dimitri holds it up to Vlad's cape. It's like, it's the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
It
Except-
did not come from the palace.
Except Vlad is a member of the imperial court, apparently.
Or was.
Was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
By the way,
could've.
just throwing this out there, you guys should all watch The Death of Stalin.
Great movie.
And it's also this. It's exactly this. It's just people pretending to be people so they can come to power.
Yeah.
Right? It's a con artist movie. It's really
But
good.
we finally come to a fantastic scene where Anastasia is given a glimpse of what her memory used to be.
Yep.
Where she walks into the ballroom and we see the...
But she holds up a plate and sees herself dancing with her father.
Yeah.
And then they flip around, and this is where I'll disagree with you for half a second, but I think the CGI works here.
Yes.
Oh, I do think it works. I do like that they did it.
Because she comes up the stairs of the palace, and they do this weird kind of pan around like it's Beauty and the Beast. She comes into the ballroom, and then the people are dancing like it's Haunted Mansion or something, and they come out of the wall.
Portraits,
just like Haunted
it's
Mansion.
amazing. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. I didn't say it. I didn't like it in that scene. I do like what they did.
Occasionally they nail it, and right here they do. And she's dancing,
flawless.
and she's bowing down.
And the song is gorgeous too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this song. I used to sing it to Adelaide as a lullaby.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And you have this moment where the world, and just from a film perspective, it works because it seems like the world has come alive. They're dancing. The sound fills the room, and then it cuts with Dimitri and Vladimir, and it's minimal score all of a sudden. There's no background sounds. She's wandering through this non-diegetic world all of a sudden, and it snaps for half a second, but she's in front of the family portrait.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
one of the
where
few.
they realize
she
she's
runs up the steps.
Anastasia.
Well,
And
I
the
would
effect is
argue-
great when the music stops, the magic stops, and it really looks like magic just dropping off of her. Like it was so well done.
And I don't know if I disagree with you or not, Danielle. I'm not sure they realize if she is Anastasia yet, or if the ruse will work.
I think it's the ruse will
You're
work.
right, Nick. They realized that she'd be perfect for their con because she looks a lot like Anastasia.
But like, if Don Bluth is a good director, which I think he can be, that scene is nearly perfect.
Yes.
Like that sequence from her breaking in, walking up the stairs, because if it is referenced, like almost parodying a Disney movie, Because it's like, actually, she is really poor, and she really needs this, and they really need this, because it's the opposite of Beauty and the Beast in a lot of ways. That scene is perfect. And the rest of the movie is horribly flawed at points, which we'll talk about.
What I love about her journey, too, though, is that she's not in it for the money or the glory or whatever. She just wants a family. Like, she wants to know where she came from and meet her family. And I just think that that's
and the
lovely.
ironic thing is, in some ways, their goals are the same. She doesn't know who she is, but she has this wonderful necklace that says, in Paris.
Together in Paris.
And they want to go to Paris for some reason. And so she's like, hell yeah, I'll use you, you use me, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll do it together.
And then suddenly they fall in love.
As you do.
Yes. Well, I love that Vlad keeps a tally of who wins the arguments.
Oh, that's
that
funny.
made my heart so happy. Like,
there was very much. I think she doth protest too much.
There was
both their sides.
There was this great moment as they're traveling to Paris together.
Wait, we should get there. Let's get to that. Bartok happens to be at the palace.
Yes, for whatever reason, this bat 10 years later is still alive and living in the palace.
And he
with
talks,
the reliquary.
And he talks like Marty's balls have dropped. Oh, jeez. Anastasia's still alive.
Should have been Christine Cavanaugh.
Yeah.
But he then goes to the depths of hell with Rasputin's soul, which he's
on accident. The reliquary recognizes her and wakes up and drags him to hell with a decomposing Rasputin.
And like at this point, there's another movie. There's two movies now. One where we're visiting with the Crypt Keeper, played by Rasputin, and then on the other hand, they're just trying to take a nice day drive. Like, and again, if we stuck with just them having to deal with fake papers and it's like From Russia with Love for an act, that's fine. But then a spawn of Satan shows up and sends out minions like the crows in Sleeping Beauty.
That's exactly it.
That's my biggest problem with this film. That you can see where the play ended and Fox began. Because
and then they had to intersperse
you've
themselves.
got the train ride, you've got the ship, you've got the entire plot of getting her to Paris and convincing the Dowager that she's Anastasia, which is fantastic in and of itself.
Yeah. And they grow throughout that process, all of them.
Yeah.
They grow.
The film does a fantastic
story
of making them grow together and portraying that. And then you've got the Rasputin supernatural demon aspect where he's throwing contrivances on their way.
And not even in it for half of the movie.
Yeah, he's not even in the third act until the exact end.
What do you think of his villain song, though?
He's great.
It was good.
Be prepared. No,
it was good.
It's the same vibe, though,
it's Jim
right?
Cummings, but it was good.
Because there's the minions marching along as he's singing it.
And their voices are so high-pitched, and they're just... Yeah, it's great. I love it. You obviously didn't love it, Daniel. What?
The villain song... The song itself is fine. The visuals were kind of weird. I mean, because it sounds like this... It could be this hardcore metal song.
I mean, other than Hercules, they don't generally go to hell in Disney movies.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, it wasn't Disney at the time, to be fair.
This isn't hell, it's limbo.
Fine.
Yeah. Although, I mean,
how low can you go, Daniel?
And his lips go down as he's holding his beard.
I will say, though, the most Cronenbergian horrifying body image is when his head goes into his torso and we're looking up through his ribcage.
Yes.
And they're green, and you're just like, what on earth is this kid's moving?
He like, at times turns into a skeleton and his skin, like, boils off of him. And, like, there's some awful visuals in this film.
At one point... Bartok throws the reliquary away, and his hand stretches out by its tendons and arteries, and then pulls back in like he's fucking Inspector Gadget. That is unsettling as hell.
He sold his soul for that relic, so
He
hey.
did. Yeah.
Well, and again, like, the idea that you die if something breaks is fine and all, but, like, we'll get to the Jurassic World-esque running in heels that we get at the end of this movie.
Well, speaking of that, though, I mean... Bartok is just so... Hank Azaria, I don't know what he was doing in this, but he was so bad in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I like Hank Azaria. I think whether he's good or bad or not doesn't matter as much as this character does not belong in this movie at all.
He's comedic action.
He's leaning too much on the Simpsons characters. Like, when he first goes to Limbo, he's like going... enough with the glowing and the smoke people. Not going with the glowing and the smoke people and the gliving.
Yeah, I was going to say
exactly.
it's Frank.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, it would be just as effective if Chris Lloyd was talking to, like, a skull as though he was a friend, like Scar does. You know, like, Jeremy Irons is just like...
Yeah.
Because he's going and saying you don't need this. Or if the reliquary itself just talked in a weird robotic voice, you don't need this cartoon bat to then also make out with a pink bat in the third act.
Who comes out of nowhere?
Or try to explain, I can teach you the latest dance steps, sir. You gotta get real wild with your hips.
It was them trying to appeal to the kids, because this is an animated movie. They say animated movies are for kids. Therefore, you need a comedic actor that will sell Burger King toys. Yeah, and it doesn't work with this movie, because it's based on a very serious play. And, like I said, you can tell where the play ends and Fox begins.
I was going to say,
and this to me... purple animal.
A movie, not a play. I don't think this was ever a play.
I thought it said it was a play. But
it is a musical now, but the musical is based on the
movie.
The animated movie.
Yeah. But, like, to your point, Bartok feels like a studio note. The whole time, he's like, we need to lighten this up, we need... I mean, if this was Shrek, it would be Donkey. Like, it's just a silly...
It seems like an extra step.
I know you guys don't like him, but I love Bartok.
Why?
Because he's stupid, and I like that.
He's the comedic relief. I think the dog was supposed to be the comedic relief initially.
No, the dog is just snuggling.
And then they made it snuggling.
Well, the dog
makes her a Disney princess. It makes her a Disney princess.
Yeah, she needs her sign. Like, obviously, Bartok isn't going to come along and be like, "You should go to St. Petersburg." Like, it has to be something. And they made it a dog whose ears just look so soft.
I will say, like, I have nothing against Bartok. I feel like it makes it. He intentionally makes it feel like a kids' movie in a way that without him, it's not as kiddie. It's still an animated movie for kids, but it doesn't feel as kiddie. However, I would have liked him to have a turn earlier on. Like, if he's the one who stops Rasputin, like, in a specific way because he has a change of heart, then he's more of a character. Otherwise, he's just kind of like, I'm the Greek choir here.
Why is he
just kind
here?
of there?
Like, why is he with Rasputin?
He's there to make out with the pink bat at the end.
Yeah.
Pink or purple or whatever. The sultry...
Well, we don't know
why.
Pinky purple animal.
Like, he's frightened to death of going to hell with Rasputin and of what Rasputin has become. But he doesn't have any other character other than, hey, buddy, you look down.
I mean, the answer is, unfortunately, it's Aladdin. It's Iago.
Yeah. That was the thought that just went in my head.
Because it's like, I mean, like, the only difference is, at the end, Rasputin could almost drag him to hell with him, which is what happens to Iago at the end.
Yeah.
Because, like, the problem is, if you want Bartok to be a redeemed character, let him do something.
Yeah.
There's a beam of pow, like there's a Hadouken that he stops so that Rasputin misses, right? If that happens...
I don't think he's meant to be redeemed. I think he's really just there. Like, he really is just the comedic relief. But I find that fun.
That's
you
fine.
need it. I'm not saying you don't need it. I don't hate him.
Ultimately, I don't think he or Rasputin were given enough screen time to really make much of a difference.
I will agree with you there.
Like I said, Rasputin isn't even in the third act, and so neither is Bartok.
No.
In the second act, like, they're on the train, and they try to destroy the train with their little demon things.
Oh, God,
and then the nightmare on the boat.
And the nightmare on the boat, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, so we should talk about those two scenes.
Otherwise, the villain and his magic and his soul stuff and Bartok just aren't in this movie.
My personal favorite moment, so long as we're on the second act in the train, came during those scenes because this is where Anya and Dimitri start taking swipes at each other.
Yep.
And there was a particular line, "Don't talk to me anymore. It's only going to upset me." And I'm like, can't even count the number of times Kellie has said that to me.
She says that to me, too.
I say it to Jonathan.
Yeah.
And where do you think I got it from? Like, honestly, I grew up with this movie. It's not mine. I totally stole it from Anastasia.
Yeah, but we should
put a lot of more force into it than Meg Ryan does. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Yes, well, Meg Ryan also sounds much nicer than I do most times. So I'm a little bit more violent, I think, than Meg Ryan as a whole.
We should talk about these scenes just a skosh. Essentially, they're trying to get her to Paris. We talked about this. The first way they go is from St. Pete's down to I imagine just the Russian, the German border, but it's on a train, and the demons right out of Wizard of Oz. Like these are
flying monkeys.
Yeah.
Not even they're out of Fantasia.
Yeah, exactly. It's Chernobog's about to show
when
up.
they destroy the bridge, like the demon Chernobog comes out and like destroys the bridge.
Well,
he just
goes away.
Even before that, they're on a train from Russia, and apparently their exit documents are outdated.
They're outdated.
So they hide in the luggage car.
Yes.
They're fraudulent documents.
They're fake.
Yeah.
And they use the wrong name. This is where we get the line, everything is red in Russia. And like shoving around the train, the demons not only presumably kill the conductor, he's just gone, right?
Yeah.
But they disconnect the other train cars from the luggage cart where they're hiding out, and then they fuse it together. We get a dynamite joke.
Yes, we do.
And they jump at the last minute.
Well, what happens also is they pull a Simpsons and stop the train by creating some sort of anchor.
That's right. I will
Which
also
doesn't
say,
work.
kind of. They watched the monorail episode of The Simpsons. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying Hank Azaria gave them some notes. Wasn't Dan Castellaneta the guy who played the genie in the second Aladdin movie after Robin Williams quit? Okay.
Oh, geez.
So it's just all Simpsons characters. But I will say this animated sequence is incredible. When the train falls off the cliff,
Yes.
like again, we have a gorgeous set piece done. It's like the glue sometimes looks a little cheap, but the set pieces look incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
it's
at
a
that
beautiful
point,
scene.
they're like, I'm just not taking the train again.
Yeah.
So they walk and take bikes.
Yeah, they start walking through Eastern Europe, and this is
Some
where
carts.
Yep.
When the raindrops
They
keep
hit
falling on my
hitchhike.
head starts
Yeah.
playing, and they're like,
They
Well, what
hitchhike the
actually
rest of the
starts playing is another song that Kelsey Grammer actually sings, where they're trying to teach Anya how to be Anastasia by telling her
Dance
about
with me,
her
and
past.
Suddenly.
And so they end up somewhere in Germany, I guess.
Well,
Strasbourg.
in this song, by the way, they name drop the battleship Potemkin.
They do. They make an Eisenstein
Yeah.
reference too.
And an Anton Chekhov reference
They do.
with Uncle Vanya loved his vodka.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they also reference Pushkin, Alexander
Alexander Pushkin. And if I recall, the Eisenstein reference they also do as she's falling down the bike, like the stairs in the ship, Battleship Potemkin.
I think you're right.
This movie has seen a movie before, in fact.
Well,
Several.
It's almost like they took notes on, this sounds Russian, this is Russian, this is Russian. And then they just said, how do we fit this into
Vodka.
the
There
film?
was a sticky note that said vodka, and they stuck
Well, they
it to
kind of
the
did the
animated.
same thing with the timeline too, though, right? Because once they get to Paris, there's all of these characters that
Yeah.
would have been notable in that time
Yes,
frame.
there's
so,
Matisse, there's a Picasso joke.
yeah,
Yes.
the
Moulin Rouge.
pilot
Yep.
and Moulin Rouge and the
So-
artists and the
How come there's no
poets. Yeah.
Tarkovsky reference then?
Because I can't pronounce Tchaikovsky when I've had this much to
Nothing
drink.
rhymes with Tarkovsky.
And there's the real answer.
Yeah.
Nothing rhymes with just flipping over a poet's like story.
Yeah.
No. Ah, shit.
Well,
S'morange rhymes with orange, John.
the only other notable thing about this song is Anya drops more information than they've told her about Anastasia's life, which her uncle's yellow cat. I don't believe we told her that.
That's
And then
right.
they break the fourth wall, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
ontological slippage at this point, and at this point we end up stumbling onto Paris,
Yes.
right? And it's gorgeous. And we should mention
Well,
They
Take
have
the
the
boat.
boat.
They
We
take
have
the boat.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the boat.
the boat. Yes.
And where she, they keep going, they're at each other's throats. They end up dancing. Anya
should have
and
let them
Dimitri,
dance.
they end up dancing, falling in love with each other. They all go to sleep. She is woken up by a demon dream where she has to walk
She's
out.
sleepwalking.
She's
She's
sleepwalking.
sleepwalking.
And they're having
Yes.
a lovely summer at the old fishing
With
hole.
her family.
Yeah.
They're going out
Nicholas
a
II
picnic.
is swimming in this quarry.
with the peasants.
Yeah.
you know.
Just jump, Anya. Jump on in. And she's standing on the edge of the boat.
And then the demons get a little too excited and show themselves. And it's
Yeah.
like, all right, well, you're done.
Dude,
This
he
is
turns
clearly
into
your
fucking
first time.
Satan. I'm like,
Yeah.
Nicholas II didn't have a tail till later, and then all of a sudden, pow, history.
Yeah.
And then, like you would do, you wake up and punch John Cusack in the face.
As you do.
But that's the
There's
name
a
of the
lot
game.
of hitting.
What's that?
There's a lot of hitting.
There's a lot of
in
hitting.
this movie.
And like the whole thing with their relationship is they each because essentially he's playing like Han Solo, and he's like, "You owe me one, kid." Like that. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's she doth protest too much on both their sides. Like they both say, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you," but
no one
secretly,
said I hate you.
Not I hate you, but they're at each other's throats, sniping at
and
each
then
other.
they slowly
And
soften
then they
that
realize,
into we're friends who hate each other, and then.
And then it's like, just fuck already, Jesus.
Which I think is a line from Vladimir.
Yeah.
Would you fuck already? And then you watch Kelsey Grammer just fall off the stage. My favorite YouTube clip. I will say, is it American Tail where there's that near shipwreck? But like the scene at sea on the boat, again, incredibly illustrated or animated. It looks good when they're on the deck of the ship and he's pulling her back from doing the Kate Winslet on Titanic.
Yeah.
Like the storm is writhing, the sea is there, the ship is being hit with realistic looking rain. It's incredible.
The only thing I didn't like about it was kind of when they panned around the scene, kind of what you were saying.
When you see the side of the ship.
You see the side of the ship, and it's
off.
blatantly CG.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's blatantly off.
I know
it
what you're
looks
talking
like
about.
the proportions seem wrong to their size.
So something was wrong with it, and you're right.
It's like the waves were too big.
They got the details right and correct and beautiful, but they missed the forest through the trees there when the ship itself looks wrong.
That's right.
Yeah,
and again, crashing through the water is something that the art looks right, but he's illustrating, or whoever's directing it at that point, has two different scenes that they're doing, and it just doesn't connect.
Yeah.
They do finally get to Paris, and at this point we've got some beautiful representation of post Haussmann Paris. The palace is gorgeous, the roads are gorgeous.
The musical number turned into pointillism and impressionism.
Yeah, I hadn't even noticed that until you pointed it out. I've seen this movie how many times, and the fact
just
that
the backgrounds, the characters look normal.
That change art styles, I had never noticed.
Yeah.
Well,
the scene when please.
They reference visually a couple of famous people who would have been in Paris at the time. So Roald Dahl, I think, is explicitly referenced. Sigmund Freud is referenced. Charles Lindbergh shows up.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. There's a list of people. It's something like 8 historical figures that would have been there at that time.
But my favorite is they're walking down the street. There's a woman who's jauntily walking her cheetah or something,
and she is that's one of the characters. She's based on a real person.
Yes,
and then the cheetah looks around the painting. The painting pans up, and it's of the Moulin Rouge, and then we cut to the Moulin Rouge, and they're enjoying a dance. This is when the can, and the glass is, and the champagne glass is held up. We peer through it. And through the bubble, this is shot after shot. This is like a dolly shot of an animated film. We pan in.
I legitimately wonder why they didn't reference the Grand Guignol.
You fucker.
Nothing rhymes with guignol. Come on, man.
Jonathan with the good points here.
Oh, boy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do yourself a favor and don't look that up.
No, don't.
So anyway.
But from here, we have this incredible, he sees her. This is when he realizes she's the love interest of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's he looks at her and it's clearly she's a woman. I know.
Yeah. She's not wearing a formless parka.
Yeah.
She's wearing an actual gown.
This is
gorgeous.
the baby blue,
It's purpley.
Yeah.
It's got the
very mod chic.
Oh my God, she's got curves. Oh, jeez.
Basically, yeah.
And she's dancing with some other shapeless, well-jawed man, and he's like, I could be that well-jawed, shapeless man.
I actually think that's the line.
Yes.
Shapeless man! Okay. But yeah, and this is when we're being led around by Bernadette Peters playing the
Sophie.
lady-in-waiting, Sophie,
Yeah.
who's fantastic, and they lovingly illustrated her boobs for all of these scenes.
Had a very deep conversation about that last night too.
All the rest of her curves.
Because the way she hugs people is this in
I got really mad because she's a very voluptuous woman.
Yeah.
Curvy.
And her skirt is the same length all the way around. And I'm sorry, but if you have an ass, that doesn't fucking happen. And I was so frustrated about it.
Kelly, it's movie magic.
Not even that, it's animation magic.
Yes.
Jonathan goes, maybe it wasn't supposed to be. And so it just happened to be the same length all the way around. And I looked at him and I was like, look, that only happened with one of those high-low dresses, and it is not my fault.
Well, exactly. At this point in time, it was probably tailor-made to her. Given that she just gave a truckload of cash to Dimitri and Anya to get fully outfitted with dresses and
Formal
tuxes,
wear.
formal wear, everything.
By the way, she's the best kind of administrative assistant. You're trying to impress my boss? Here's money.
Yes, right. Technically, you can't do this, but let me get you in.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me tell you where they're going to be.
But she and Vlad obviously had a history.
Yes.
Like
We haven't mentioned what happened before that whole that key to your heart bit, which is that Anya goes and apparently Sophie quizzes her on like the history of Anastasia,
Yeah.
Right.
And she gets all the questions right, including how she escaped the palace, which is what convinces Dimitri she's the real deal because
he was there.
Delayed, by the way. That reaction was delayed. And it bothered me, still bothers me to this day, because she's saying it, and it's not until she's done, and then a heartbeat later, that he reacts. And it's like, you already see him feeling bad about it to begin with. And then she says that, and his reaction is just like, oh, fuck.
Even before that, though, there's a scene of the Dowager Empress saying, I don't want to meet any more Anastasias.
Because, by the way, what's funny is the woman that she says that because of looks like made-for-TV Anastasia. Did you notice that?
Yes.
It's the same character, like same color hair, a little bit longer hair, but otherwise it just looks like it was done by a different animator.
Well,
like,
again,
it has
like,
the
which
same
I think is the
jawline.
point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Like that's why
Where
when
they're
they
looking-
saw her in the painting, they're like, she looks just like Anastasia.
Right.
They're not the only ones thinking this.
Sure.
There's a whole line of people who are putting these girls up, and that's why the Dowager says, I've seen too many of these would-be Anastasias. I'm done.
Yeah.
She's
My
obviously
heart- my
dead.
heart can't
I
take
can't
it.
do this. I can't do this.
We do forget.
Which makes me think
so-
that in this, she's actively looking for her, too.
Yeah.
We have
Word is
forgotten,
out.
just for 30 seconds at the beginning of the movie, my favorite character, Charity James, is like, Granny, it's me,
She's amazing.
Anastasia.
Anastasia.
She,
And I just like...
first of all, in my mind, it's a drag queen.
Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
100%.
And take a huge drag on a cigarette.
On a
first.
cigarette in a holder, and
Grandmama.
she is on fire wearing a sailor's outfit underneath.
Like something
Under
like
a
Sailor
fur
Moon.
coat.
Yeah.
Under a fur coat. Grandmama.
And Vlad and Dimitri are just agape, and Dimitri takes a pen and marks her name off the list.
And we're done.
It is perfect comedy, because again, without Bartok and Rasputin, that's what the movie's comedy was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's perfect in that moment.
perfect.
It's
Yep.
absolutely perfect.
And anyway,
We should also
started
mention,
giggling.
though, the montage where they're buying Anya clothes is because Grandmama is going to the
The
Russian
Russian
ballet.
yeah, so the Bolshoi is showing up to play, like just a joke, Cinderella.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a Disney movie parody, almost. They're
And
gonna do it.
looking at the credits, they actually like filmed the Russian ballet doing this because
Oh,
they,
no
they
kidding.
got credit for it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then they animated
we,
it.
we can go into this a little bit later, but the credits are fascinating. That
Oh, really?
The pictures are authentic. The jewelry is authentic. The dresses are authentic. The ballet was authentic.
Even the music box.
The music box was
It was
authentic.
a jewelry box,
so
but
they
it was
credit
authentic.
all this stuff like thanks to the museum for the pictures, thanks to this gallery for the pictures, thanks for the ballet for the actors.
Okay, so I saw the ballet bit, but I doubt it's authentic because there was no bear driving the car.
Yeah, I don't think they like completely rotoscoped it. But I think they based it enough off an actual performance. They had to give credit to it.
Well, I mean, again, like you look at a ballet's script, there's the words, there's the music, and then there's
the choreography.
question mark. And
Yeah.
the choreography and the direction is up to who's directing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, since this movie felt very much like Sleeping Beauty at the beginning, it's funny that they did Cinderella.
Yeah.
Because they could have done anything. So let's just poke the bear.
I mean, they
Well,
could
I
have done
think
Sleeping Beauty.
Cinderella
Mouse.
was a popular ballet, too.
Well, it was. And again, this is the Bolshoi, which, well, no, I guess, well, if it's 28, it's the Bolshoi,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what is it doing? It's traveling around showing Westerners what it's like that the Russians make art. So
Yeah.
it shows Tchaikovsky and
It's the same
Cinderella.
thing that Chinese thing does every year here in Atlanta.
The bodies exhibit?
No.
Oh!
Oof, no.
Ooh.
Maybe we cut that.
Oh, no, come on, that was funny. Fuck you.
Come to China. We have.
Oh, their version of Cirque du Soleil.
yeah, whatever that is.
Xinyan.
Yeah, there you go.
Xinyan, yeah.
Anyway, during the ballet,
Cirque du Soleil, come to French Canada.
Dimitri goes to confront Grandmama, and she ain't having it. She's like, I know who you are. You're a con artist who's been trying to hire actresses to play
Yes,
my
but also-
granddaughter.
Yeah.
Yes. And Anastasia hears that.
Yes,
And
she
she
does.
hears that.
And then she just goes, casting couch. And he goes, oh, this is awkward.
And then he hijacks her car.
As you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And she's
creepy.
cool with it, too.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's Paris. They're fine if you kill nobles.
What is she going to do? Like,
Well, she's an old lady, yeah.
She's old. She's a monarch. So she's not going to, like, fight someone.
Are you telling me Angela Lansbury hasn't killed a bitch? Because
we know she has.
Angela Lansbury probably has. The Dowager Empress, probably not. I mean, not by her own hand. Not by her own hand.
That's true.
We've seen the Manchurian Candidate. She can hypnotize a guy to kill a bitch.
By the way, if you have not seen Manchurian Candidate, see her version of the Manchurian. The remake is good too, but see her do it.
Because she plays what's-his-face's mother.
Sinatra's mom.
But she's younger than Sinatra.
Or
about
she was still like 30 years old at that point. They like tried to emphasize, this is an old lady.
This poor woman was born old.
Sinatra, would you marry her? No, she's like my mom.
She wasn't Sinatra's mother. Sinatra was a separate character, I think.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and Dimitri takes her to
the hotel.
The hotel, so she can meet Anastasia. And
she does.
She does. And Anastasia, because I guess he says, I'm the boy who let you out. You owe me this. And she's like,
which is logically not
okay.
Like,
and
really how that works.
I don't think she connected that.
Well, he also doesn't give her any evidence to believe
that. Oh, he shows her the music box.
Oh, yes. He had the music box. That's right.
He has the music box.
The castle was looted. Anybody could have that.
Yeah.
So like,
but he's like, I'm the boy who let you out, who made you escape. So those two
who
things
opened the door in the
connected.
wall, right? Isn't that what he said? Didn't he tell her?
So
how
he's got
they
the music
out?
box, which anyone could have. But then he says, I'm the one who opened the wall to let you and Anastasia escape. So she says, okay, I owe you one. We'll do this. And that's it.
And Anastasia thinks it's him coming up to like talk to her too.
She's ready to go.
Yeah. And she basically says it. She's like, I don't know who I am. I don't know if I'm Anastasia. I'm just looking for my family. This is all I have to go by.
And then, of course,
and
Grandma
she smells peppermint. She smells peppermint.
Mm.
And she goes, we spilled a bottle. And
on the rug.
Your rug forever smelled of peppermint.
And then Grandma recognizes the Together in Paris slogan.
Yeah.
And is this where she sings the song? She
No.
kind of hums the lyrics.
Yeah, they sing it together at the beginning, and then they hum it together there and finish the final line.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they know that they each belong to each other.
It just so happens that the line about remembering, which is on the nose, but it is a good song. This is a very sharp choice song. Well, and then Rasputin shows up.
Yes, he does.
Well, not yet. So they go back to the castle, right? And the Dowager Empress offers Dimitri his money.
Why is everyone still pretending like she matters? She doesn't.
First of all, they saw Spaceballs, and the hero has to be offered money and then reject the money because he's in love with the princess.
Yes, exactly.
Well, they still call her Your Highness. It's like, no, you aren't.
She is. That is her title. She is still a Dowager Empress.
Of what exactly?
Well, it doesn't matter. But that doesn't matter.
She was a princess in exile.
And she was born royalty. She married into royalty. You will respect that. Like, that is how that goes,
song
right?
about being royal.
Well, like think of like all these toppled monarchies, like the Italian or the Spanish or the the Afghan or the Persian monarchs who were exiled because they had revolutions or whatever. Their monarch is still referred to as Your Highness, Your Majesty, whatever, basically until they die, because it's not like a title that you just do away with. Not really.
Well, unless you're Henry VIII.
Not usually, yeah.
And your daughters are no longer allowed
so
to be princesses.
So she's still officially... plus, she's loaded. So
okay, that makes
probably,
sense.
In 1920s Paris, that probably matters more than being Her Majesty. But
she is still royalty.
Had she been in England, it probably would have mattered a bit more because they're like, "Hey, you're the cousin twice removed from Victoria."
My assumption is she was French royalty when she married into Russian royalty, right? Like if she's in Paris, like that's why she's not just in Paris because she likes
was still a republic.
Yeah,
so
France,
they wouldn't have had a monarchy.
Okay,
she was more related. She was, like Nick said, she was the granddaughter of Victoria. So she was directly in...
Okay.
Which makes her related to every single monarch in...
Right. She was born royalty.
Yes.
She still retains that title. Like, if her husband dies and she goes back to her home country or whatever, like, she's still royalty.
All I know is I've seen The Last Emperor, and nobody was calling that dude Your Highness at the end of that movie.
Well, that was also in China, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Which, like, you're not going to call the ex-emperor emperor in communist China. Whereas she was in Paris, who didn't give a fuck about communist Russia.
Yeah, and the Empress Dowager died as an Empress Dowager.
Yeah.
And no one cares, because she can't carry anything on, so who really...
It's also cares? France, a country without a monarchy anymore. Like
you said, like, it probably matters more that she's loaded, that she can live a certain level of popularity. Plus, like, I mean, what if Prince Harry came to live in Atlanta? We'd still call him Prince Harry, because he's ex-monarchy.
I don't call him Prince Harry.
If he did,
I call him that dumb son of a bitch, is what I do.
So
don't we all?
There's a dude, by the way, I ran into him once. He calls himself the Count of Paris. He is a crazy person who wears an old military uniform he bought at a thrift store, but he's convinced he's the next in line for the French crown.
Was this in France?
It's in France.
Okay.
There is no French crown.
Yeah, there's no French crown.
He's just a crazy, homeless guy.
It's not like...
I mean, technically, I'm also in line for the French crown, but there isn't one anymore.
But it's not like it's Rohan or something where there's a mysterious crown that just got lost somewhere. Like, no, we had a process where we did away with this.
But, I mean, to be fair, though, if you said Your Majesty and bow to him, he'll let you take a picture with him.
Well, it's like the Emperor of California.
Is that all I have to do?
Yeah.
Let people know I'm
California.
crazy?
Like, he had no power whatsoever, but everyone just said, well, you're crazy, so we'll just call you Emperor because you say you are.
That's all I have to do. Yeah. I just have to be myself and let just people see how crazy I am. And just
you dress up with robes and chevrons and say, "Yes, I am," the Queen of Georgia.
Specifically, Emperor Norton wore an old cavalry uniform and carried a sword around the streets of San Francisco.
Swords?
Didn't he also have money and he collected taxes and things like that?
Well, he didn't have money. He was this homeless bum, but
people
give him money.
People gave him money. Yes, they would give him money.
I would give him money too.
Yeah,
I was under the protection of Emperor Norton.
Like, bars would give him money so that then he would spend it at their bars.
Yeah, dude, of course.
Yeah.
Of course you would.
Yeah. So, that's a game we should all get in on.
Oh, God.
There was a great issue of The Sandman about Emperor Norton.
Yes. Neil Gaiman. Look it up.
Was there?
Oh,
what is it?
Oh.
Apparently, he was Death's favorite king.
Huh.
Why not?
In the new audiobook, that's voiced by...
David Tennant?
I just lost her name. No, Death is a woman. It's Kat Dennings.
Oh, there you go. I love her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She got married after a month.
Good for her. Oof.
I wonder what the party songs were like at their wedding.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird.
Where are we?
But she's actually a really good
Did we get through the ballet?
She's a good
we're
actress.
through the ballet. The two have been introduced to each other, but Raspy...
Yeah, Raspy shows up.
Raspy shows up, and then there's that final
a
confrontation.
Deus Ex third act happens.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I'm in this movie too.
But again, this is where the Sleeping Beauty thing becomes the most apt, because he turns into
but the
a
roles
monster.
are reversed, right? So it's not quite Sleeping Beauty, because Anastasia, her grandmother tells her that Dimitri didn't take the money, so she goes to get versus the prince coming.
All Dimitri took was 538 space bucks for taxi, tows, and gas.
Yeah.
But then he turns into a monsterman. He calls up this giant metal horse demon, and he himself is blasting the bridge like it's Spectre. Stay tuned. You've heard our episode at this point for No Time to Die, but it's the last Bond movie.
And I love that IMDb pointed out that the bridge they were on, while it's unnamed Parisian Bridge, was actually the Tsar Alexander II bridge.
Yeah.
Because it was built or named, christened, whatever, when the Tsar went to
Came
Paris
visit,
and went to visit. And so this is the bridge where it all comes to a head. And this horse, which I love. The CG in this movie I generally meh, but this horse looks fantastic. It's just glowing. It's like brick. It's hellfire, and it's like a Pegasus.
It becomes a treehouse of horror for 30 seconds.
It's attacking Dimitri, who's trying to save Anastasia.
Look at my horse. My horse is amazing.
Oh, God. And to be fair, Dimitri gets knocked the fuck out almost immediately. He's like, I can't do anything.
and God bless Meg Ryan in these heels. Anastasia, like 5'5", Anastasia runs up in these heels and slide tackles a 6'5" Rasputin.
Yeah, she does.
There's
She
muscle
grew up
bones.
in an orphanage.
Yeah.
Come on.
she knows how to
Dude,
handle
she
herself.
fights dirty, and it's
Yeah.
great. And then she stomps on his nuts, his reliquary, until
This is
it turns
for-
red.
Yeah.
And she
She lists
realizes
everything
this
Oh,
is
stomp on
how
my
he can die.
reliquary.
Yeah. And she destroys it.
Das Vidania.
Dos Vidania.
And
Which
then-
she says
Rasputin.
very American.
Das Vidania.
Yeah. And I looked at Jonathan and I was like, for all the money they bumped into the names here, like they could have just hired a, linguist to train her to say it correctly.
No, why would you do that?
Three linguists killed themselves in the making. This movie is dedicated to the honor of Vasily.
I did enjoy the bit with Bartok before this final battle where he's like, "Oh, this can only end in tears." I'm like, "This Mortal Coil reference." There you go.
But he's also just like holding himself in the fetal position. Don't worry, he gets to make out Pepe Le Pew style with another bat in about 45 seconds.
She made eyes at him.
Yeah, she just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, she
literally
comes
swoops
out of
in.
nowhere.
Yeah.
The
She's
French.
wiggling her hips around, batting her eyelashes.
Pussy.
And this is
Because
how.
bats have hips.
Yeah.
And this is how Kelly
don't
got
lie.
engaged to John.
Yes, exactly.
Basically, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was dressed as a purple bat.
I'm sure you were.
Yes, she was. The
Well,
fur
I
and
mean-
everything.
Okay, so
The restaurant
at
almost
Dragon
wouldn't let us
Con,
in.
there's a world in which I dress up like Dimitri, and Candace dresses up like Anastasia, and you two are bats? Because
Yes.
that's
There is
what
a universe
There
where
is
that
a
happens.
universe where this
where
happens.
that
Yes,
happens.
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Meanwhile, I'd be the orphanage owner.
First of all, you're Vladimir with the big
gotta be.
with the beard
And the dog.
Yeah.
And the dog with
And you
its
just have
medal.
Although you could have the cat.
They put
Yeah.
a medal on the dog. I love that.
Dude, you know what? Because fucking Chewbacca needed a medal at the end of Star Wars.
I
He
did not
didn't get
call
one.
Chewbacca a dog.
He's
No, well,
basically
but the
a
thing
space
that's
dog.
funny too
He's
is
a space
like,
dog. He's a space
I don't know
dog.
if you guys noticed, but like, so the dog gets a medal, but if you look at the painting at the beginning, the dog in the painting has a little medal.
God, it's like communism didn't even happen. God, it's so good.
Speaking of which,
Full circle.
So after Raspy dies, we get to the end of this, which is that basically Anastasia and Dimitri run away together and hook up, which
Because
is
she's about to have her, like, what do you call it? Debutante
yeah.
type ball.
Gala.
Gala.
Welcome back,
And
Gala.
this is literally the end of Aladdin, where they're flying off into the distance and just singing. They're afraid again.
Yeah.
A whole new
Yeah,
world
because she just
for
elopes
you
with
and
Dimitri.
me. Yep, that's
basically.
it.
And the Dowager basically says, you can choose to do what you want.
It is
Yeah.
not an end; it is a beginning.
Exactly.
Well, I love that line though.
Yeah.
I love that line because Sophie, they're reading the note that she made her decision, which obviously you fucking left the party right after we talked. Clearly, you made that decision.
Yeah.
You didn't even bother to change clothes though, but you left your crown behind. Whatever. But Sophie's like, "Oh, what a beautiful ending," and the Dowager Empress says, "No, what a beautiful beginning." And I love that line because you get everything is happily ever after, and like that's it's an ending. They get their happy ending, and it's like, but they're all so young still. Like it's a beginning. There's still more, and it's still a journey, right? Like that's her first song, her journey to her past. And I liked the way it tied all that together. I was telling John last night that that line has always kind of stood out. It's just so different from what other princess movies do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a happy ending. It's a beginning. And you get to choose what that's going to be. Like,
And-
who's to
and-
say that he
Which is
doesn't fall
why
back
there's
into
a
con? She's
sequel.
like, fuck you.
And I believe
Is there?
that
There is. It's Bartok's movie.
I told you there was a Bartok movie!
yes,
I
there is.
didn't disagree with you.
And I believe that's why the end theme is called "At the Beginning."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh,
with
there
you.
go.
At the
Yeah.
beginning, with you. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And we did, we did talk about it.
Yeah. I feel like, though, she passed up an opportunity. Like, you can still be princess.
You can do two things.
You can do two things. You can still be princess and have your guy on the side. You don't need to abandon the princess thing.
She didn't want to be a princess. She
She's
wanted
not
to
a
find her
princess because She
family.
has no throne to inherit.
Well, she would have inherited the fuck ton of money that the Dowager would have left her.
And there's nothing to say that she didn't.
The side
She
story.
didn't want the
That's true.
title. She didn't want the attention. She wanted her family.
Yeah.
Just because she goes off
But she
doesn't
ran
mean
away
that
from her
she's...
family.
She didn't run away. She went with Dimitri, but it's not like she's never welcomed back. it's not like she isn't still going to get that inheritance. It's not like those relationships
were is going to get laid.
Yeah, exactly, on a boat.
Fireworks.
No chaperones in the 1920s.
Motion in the ocean. Let's wrap this shit up. Kellie, final thoughts.
I love this movie. I will always love this movie. This movie is amazing. And if you see me at DragonCon, it's going to be because I am obviously every single day going to be a different version of Anastasia.
I'm going to be a pink bat. John?
Yes, I'm also going to be a pink bat forever.
I really enjoyed this movie. I don't remember when I first saw it. I know I didn't see it in theaters, but I loved it ever since the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
And as a historian, the inaccuracies annoy me, but less so than like the Disney side.
Sure.
Because they're less pointed. Like they've got an actual plot beyond that.
Yeah.
And I'm still annoyed that Rasputin was basically just thrown in there. I think even the first time I saw it, I would have loved it without him. Because
or with more of him.
More of him. Yeah, pick one. Don't just like bring him in the last 30 seconds of the third act and call it a day.
Sure.
Like the movie stands alone by itself without the supernatural side of it. But regardless, I love that. I like this movie. The animation is top notch. The voice actors are fantastic. John Cusack is dreamy, and I don't think it won any Academy Awards, but it was nominated for a couple for music,
song and design. Yeah,
which was more than the Disney one got at the time, because I think that was Tarzan at the year.
Hercules.
Was it Hercules? Well, yeah, that's
another
a fart of a movie.
Like.
And
this came out the same year as Titanic, so of course it's not going to win any Oscars.
Yeah, it's not going to win anything. But it's a solid movie. All around, it's very, very good, and it still holds up. All right, and we're done.
You just hear bottle breaking sound.
All right.
I'm waiting.
Okay.
I don't have any glass. I'm holding a wine bottle for those of you that can't see it.
All right. The animation in this movie is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Especially during the Once Upon a December sequence where she's dancing in the palace and the portraits come to life. That was gorgeous. The cast is great. The soundtrack is actually really good. Like, legitimately very good. I kind of feel like they were cheating by not having the actors sing their own songs, but even with the voiceover artists that they got to dub, the music was good. For whatever reason, and John addressed this, I couldn't separate the fiction from the reality. Every single time they deviated from what actually happened, it was like, no, that's not what happened. Or, no, Anastasia was shot by the Red Guard along with her father. Or, no, where's Stalin? Why is he not putting down the rumor in St. Petersburg? Because that's what happened. Aesthetically, this movie is great, and if you can suspend your disbelief long enough, you'll definitely get some value out of it, but otherwise, go watch Dr. Zhivago.
Oh, God. A nice kids musical.
The thing is, though, Daniel, like, first of all, it's a movie. The fact that you want it to be fact is silly.
We got so close.
And I don't understand if you're willing to suspend your disbelief to watch an Anastasia movie. Period. End of story. That's what it is. And it's not that Stalin put the rumor down because it still exists. So obviously that didn't happen. So I don't understand how you can't get past that.
It's not that I want the movie to be completely factually accurate, because you're right. That is silly. That is completely silly. It's whether or not the movie can bring me into its world and make me accept the narrative.
You didn't let it.
It just didn't do it for me.
But I will agree with Daniel on, other than the stuff he just is going to edit out. What I'll agree with Daniel on is, I don't know why it had to be set during the Russian Revolution. There's nothing about it that says Russian Revolution other than the name that Anastasia is a great name and Rasputin is a great name for character. But if you're not going to care about any of the history, why not set it in a mythical kingdom where they kick out the monarchy?
Right?
Right? I mean, like, that's the answer. Now, I will say, everything else about it, I loved. I'd recommend this movie. I think it's great. It's one of these rare examples of not Disney movies, because by this time in Disney movies, they had lost all their teeth. There was no animation style in the late 90s. It's not until really Pixar comes around that they have characterization again. So I'd rather watch this than... I mean, this and Hercules are about the same. This and Mulan are about the same for me. But, like, the stuff after that, like, I'd rather watch this than Atlantis. I'd rather watch this than Dinosaur. What? I mean, I like Atlantis.
I'd rather watch this
I
than
like
Dinosaur.
Atlantis is Jonathan's favorite.
I do like Atlantis in its previous
If
episode.
Atlantis had John Cusack in it, I would love that more than this.
I mean,
Jonathan likes Atlantis because he looks like Dude Man. Like, look at him.
He looks like Michael J. Fox's character. And I do like that movie, but I think this is more fun. I mean, there's jokes in Atlantis. It's just, to me, Atlantis feels more like a wasted opportunity than this movie. Right? And
there's no music.
Among other things. And a lot of it is very serious. This movie does have some, like, levity. I just don't know why they picked this particular horrific historical moment to make into a lovely musical. Like, there's so many other... Like, you could have done the same thing with a fake kingdom and they're escaping to Paris.
Well,
and it wouldn't have done any difference.
From what I understand, Fox was trolling their archives for things to turn into animated movies.
That makes sense.
So the year after this came out the animated The King and I.
Ooh.
Which no one ever saw.
No one saw.
But you know what? Daniel's right. This could have just been an animated version of The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music. So we are out of time. Once again, Daniel turned out to be wrong, and we...
As per usual.
I'm kidding.
Hey, I didn't say it this time.
No, I was saying what this was an episode that was longer than the original film, and we had a fucking great time. So as I'm wrapping this up at 1 hour 26 minutes and 27 seconds, I'd like to thank you for listening, recording, watching us. If you're not on Patreon or YouTube, we're in both places. In the meantime, please keep reviewing us, sharing us with your friends, and breaking into song whenever a girl bat shows up and gives you a little hug. Thanks, guys.
Sound of Music sucks.
Myopia Movies is produced by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Settis. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Settis. Mission Briefing is hosted by John Copsey. Podcasts are edited by Daniel Settis, and Patreon is edited by Nick Hoffman. Our engineer is Nick Hoffman. The theme song is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.